Think about your grandparents for a moment, or your great-grandparents. The things they knew: how to grow food without chemicals, how to read the weather without a phone, old cures that actually worked, stories about where your family really came from. Now, ask yourself, where did they learn those things? Because somewhere along the line, a lot of that knowledge just stopped being passed down. And I used to think that was just normal. Things get forgotten, life moves on. But then I started looking into what happened to the great libraries of the ancient world. The real ones, the ones nobody talks about in school. And what I found made me realize that forgetting wasn't always an accident. Now here's what most of us were taught. If we were taught anything at all. The Library of Alexandria, the big famous one in Egypt, burned down. It was an accident, or it was Julius Caesar, or it was a fire during a war. Nobody's really sure. It was a tragedy. And then we moved on. And that's basically the whole lesson. But here's what the lesson leaves out. Alexandria wasn't the only one. Not even close. And the fires didn't exactly stop after Rome. So let me show you what actually happened, and why the pattern of it should make you stop and think. Let's start with what was actually inside these places, because that part gets glossed over completely. The Library of Alexandria didn't just hold books. It held scrolls from every corner of the known world. Medicine, mathematics, astronomy, history, plant knowledge, engineering. Scholars traveled there from Greece, from Persia, from India. Estimates say it held anywhere from 40,000 to 700,000 scrolls. We genuinely don't know the exact number because so little survived. And Alexandria wasn't alone. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad, built around 800 AD, was one of the greatest collections of knowledge in history. It had texts on medicine, philosophy, astronomy, and science that the Western world wouldn't rediscover for another 500 years. It was destroyed in 1258 when the Mongols sacked the city. Eyewitnesses at the time wrote that the Tigris River ran black with ink from the books thrown into it. The library at Ctesiphon in Persia. The temple libraries of the Maya in Central America, burned by Spanish priests in the 1500s. One priest, Diego de Landa, personally ordered the burning of Maya books. He later admitted it himself in his own writings. He said the books contained nothing but superstitions and falsehoods of the devil. Those books held centuries of astronomy, medicine, history, and science that we will never get back. These weren't accidents. These were decisions. I want to pause here and ask you something directly. Because I know some of you watching this grew up near places with real history. Old land, old families, things your parents or grandparents said that never quite made sense with what the schools were teaching. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what's one thing an older person in your family told you that you could never find in a textbook? I read every single one. I want to know. Now here is the part that I couldn't shake once I saw it. Every single time a great library or knowledge center was destroyed in history, the people who destroyed it replaced it with something they controlled. Always. Without exception. When the Spanish burned the Maya books, they replaced them with the Bible and the Spanish language. When the House of Wisdom in Baghdad was destroyed, the Islamic Golden Age of science, which had been the most advanced in the world, never fully recovered. When Alexandria burned, the Roman Empire eventually replaced it with church doctrine as the official source of truth. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. You destroy the old record. You install the new one. And within 2 or 3 generations, the people who grew up under the new system don't even know there was an old one. They think the new version was always how it was. Now think about your own lifetime. Think about what you were taught in school about American history, about the history of your ancestors, whether they came from Europe or Africa or somewhere else. How much of that history felt complete? How many times did you grow up and then find out later that something was left out? or that the official story had some big convenient gaps in it. That's not an accident either. Incomplete history doesn't happen by accident. Someone decides what gets kept and what gets left out. And here's the most unsettling part. The ancient world, the world before Rome, before the church calendar, before the printing press and the standardized textbook, was far more connected than we're told. There is solid evidence that ancient peoples traded information across oceans, that they had advanced knowledge of astronomy and medicine, that they understood things about the human body and the natural world that Western science only rediscovered in the last 100 years. Most of that evidence was sitting in those libraries. And most of those libraries are gone. If any of this is landing for you, if you've felt for years that the history you were taught has some very convenient holes in it, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe, because every week I go deeper into one of these stories, the ones that didn't make it into the textbooks. And I promise you, what's coming next makes this look like the introduction. So let me leave you with this. Right now, as you're watching this, there are scholars and researchers who spend their careers piecing together what was lost. And occasionally, something surfaces. A scroll found in a cave, a coded manuscript that nobody could read for 600 years, a clay tablet that rewrites what we thought we knew about ancient trade routes. Every time something like that surfaces, the official story has to shift a little. And every time the official story shifts, it raises the same question. What else is out there that we haven't found yet? What else was deliberately buried, burned, or just quietly left out of the curriculum? Your ancestors lived inside a much older story than the one we were handed, and some part of you already knows that. That's why you're here.